Good morning. If I could have your attention, please, and if everybody can have a seat, we'll get started. If I could have your attention, we could get started. I think I'm going to have to use my teacher voice. Good morning. Welcome to the third Kentucky Teachers in the Know banquet style. Why not? We've had to do it differently and pivot a little bit each year because of COVID, and that's what we're doing. Hopefully next year we could be completely in person with the whole conference. 4 years ago, I started Kentucky Teachers in the Know as a way to just keep a few teacher friends in the know about some things going on in education, when the next conference was, what the next strategy was. And then soon after that, a few weeks, someone who we shall not name attempted to take our pensions. As my 100 or so colleagues dove into the information being shared, they began to add their friends to the group who wanted to know more about what was going on and what we could do. 4 years later, we have a membership of over 24,000 teachers. Thank you. We have teachers, we have legislators, we have district administration, association leaders, and the media as well. We believe in transparency, open door policy, and communication are the key to lasting positive change. This morning we have a real treat for you, and we're going to jump right into this. We have the Mighty Shades of Ebony. They are a musical group out of Louisville, Jefferson County Public School System, and they're going to talk to you today a little bit about their project and how they combat social justice, how they talk about environmental issues and other things that are going on through music. Where some of us, like myself, do it in the written word, they do it through music. Come on up, guys.
Hello, we're the Mighty Shades of Ebony, and I'm going to be talking to you about the Trash Cans Initiative. So we want to put trash cans into red light areas because there's overabundance of trash. And there's actually a psychology to it. In the red light areas, when there's trash, bad mental health is up, crime is up, stress is up, and when you take away the trash, all that improves.
Thank you, Jayce. So yeah, we want to muralize trash cans to address environmental justice and the artistry that adds beauty and inspiration for the people. So you can go follow us on Instagram at Mighty Shades of Ebony. You can also reach us at shades.ebony@gmail.com. We also have a website which we would love for you to go visit, which is justiceleaguelou.org. And there's also a donate button on there as well. So if you want to link arms with us and join our journey, please go donate. So again, our website is justiceleaguelou.org. And with that being said, DJ, drop that beat! Somebody pray for us! Somebody pray for us! Yeah! Yeah! This one was after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ethel Cole, and Robert Walker. Rest in power. Yeah. Face on the beat. Hey, drink down trash cans. Blow away your trash can. If you see it, pick it up and throw it in the trash can. Drink down trash cans. Blow away
such a tragedy. They got crushed to death in the back of a garbage truck. If your life is worth in sanitation, you were out of luck.
Trying to take a fight with the separate white people. If you're like a weapon in the back of the truck, you're not equal. Sympathy, then contact, hysteria. Two black men from an urbanized area. They don't care what's funded by marginal methods. Before he got a second chance to start to say your now we in modern day, little the drink up in a wet. Equal rights, equal pay, little songs over me.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with step one. But if we don't love ourselves, then we won't get it done. I see trash in the street every time I look around. But before we reach the sky, can we take care of our ground?
Reach your hands up to the sky, ever peace and hope high. We can do this, you and I. Bottom right with the fun. This is the equipment. This is the equipment. Only you and I can do for you and I would like to do for you. I will do it, that's what we are asking. Hey, what they say? Hey, what they say? Anymore, what you need, what the company you keep. But when they think I know that you're trash in the street. This is our city, no it ain't a trash line. The truth matters is, we all that we got. So now drink down trash can, blow away your trash can. If you see it, pick it up and throw it in the trash can. Drink down trash can, throw away your trash can. If you see it, pick it up and throw it in the trash can. It's not hard to do, there ain't nothing to it. Don't be the late with the game and make my foot off the loop. By the time we hit the street, it'll put on the train. I think destruction of our city brings moral disdain. Drink down trash cans, dope as can be. Don't cry in yourself and claim your true destiny. Throw away your trash, don't let it blow in the wind. City of Louisville, doing it big.
Let's go, my heart in the building. If you're having a good day, if you're having a bad day, we must liven up your day. Let's go. Legacy, very important to me. I want my name written in history. You're gonna know my name after all rock me. How to make yours, that's easy. How to make yours is a question you ask. Just follow me in these 3 easy tasks. First off, you cannot be afraid or the scare mind with those free days. Next thing, contain all information. You can be rich, it's your mind and dedication. Last thing, you gotta be you. Fight for your rights, don't let the bullshit.
When I gotta go, I wanna leave a big legacy. You wanna live legends like truth, I can stop me. Nothing is stopping me. Not even problem, because I'm on this place glory. I'ma keep the generation saying, look at that, and everybody else said, now I take a part of it. I'ma do the work, but I'm still here with it. Cause I'ma live a legacy, but I have valid reason. Legacy, very important to me. I want my name written in history. You're gonna know my name after all rock. How to make yours, that's easy.
You're telling me the last thing for the masses. Earth is a picture of me with the Buchanan. Hard to pull the water with no nitrogen. CO2, I can put the blade of oxygen. We need clean air, not carcinogens. No more power plants or diesel engines. Regulation clean, cars and trucks. Industrial, beautiful, oils and drugs. Yeah,
We gotta take the earth. We gotta make a change. Something is in the air, making me feel strange. Coming up in the air. What are we gonna do? We need to address it now. It starts with me. We gotta take the earth. We gotta make a change. Something is in the air, making me feel strange. Coming up in the air. What are we gonna need to address it? Start with me and you. Thank you. That's all I did. Please go on our website. Www.melodies.org.
Give it up for the party stranger, Ebony. Untitled Chapter. Just the way it is. Thank you very much.
Well, buddy, do we know how to start a show or what? You did an excellent job. Thank you all so much for being here and performing for us. Teaching the past couple of years has been just a little short of impossible, a little more than stressful, but tremendously rewarding, which is exactly why we wanted to acknowledge the struggles and the aha moments while also celebrating the wins. This year we added an award ceremony to the conference so that we could do just exactly that. Celebrate the people who make the magic happen each and every day. We have a total of 8 awards to present today. The first 4 awards were voted on by members of the Kentucky Teachers in the Know. The last 4 awards were each named after an influential person from public education, and the winners were each chosen based on how much they emulate that person's impact on our education system. Jamie and I are incredibly proud and honored to present to you today the first recipients of the annual Conference for a Cause Awards and Recognitions. And we're going to pivot, because that's what teachers do over and over and over again. And we're going to change our order a little bit, and then after this first award, we're going to go to lunch because it's already been delivered. So, first award. The Public Education Influencer Award. The recipient of this prestigious award is someone whose passion, actions, and dedication to public education has positively influenced our schools, our classrooms, our educators, and our students. This person has taken a stance to support public education and fight for it, no matter the pushback or the negativity he has faced. The influence of this individual we've seen, felt, and heard in our classrooms for a lifetime. The nominees for this award made it quite a challenge for voting, though. They were Governor Andy Beshear, Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman, Dr. Stephen Stack, and Dr. Lou Young, our chair of the Kentucky Board of Education. This year's recipient of the Kentucky Teachers in the Know Public Education Influence Award is our very own Governor Andy Beshear. We'll have more awards after lunch. So if we will start with the rows on this side of the room, we'll go on out. The food is set up. We'll grab what you want and bring it back in here, and then we'll dismiss the next people.
Ready?
All right, now I guess I can say good afternoon. We've pivoted a couple of times, but we're good to go now, I think. And Jamie just informed me I'm going to do all the talking, so I apologize. I tried my best to get him up here some too. So we had to switch around a little bit, but we're going to get back to our awards and get those going, and then we have our guest panel after that and some speakers in the middle. So the next award is the Kentucky Teachers in the Know Communications and Publications Award. As we all know, education is a hot topic in the media. Nothing pleases the public more right now than to read about something controversial in our public schools. We are blessed to have some of the best who truly tell and share our truth, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Nominees for this award include Tony Constatman, who's the Communications Director at KDE, Brad Hughes, who's co-author of Maximum Impact Communication Strategies for School Leaders, Valerie Spears with the Lexington Herald Leader, and Olivia Kraft with the Courier Journal. The members voted and chose Olivia Kraft as the 2021 Communications and Publications Award winner. Olivia, come on. Would you like to say something?
You can read about it tomorrow, or comments.
We were just out in the hallway talking about, we'd both try to stay off Twitter while we were here so that we wouldn't know what was going on with education right now. Next, we have the Kentucky Teachers in the Know Decision Maker Award. This award is for a person in the position to make decisions that impact public education in Kentucky today, tomorrow, and well into the future. This person not only has the capability of making a lasting impression on our education system, but has already made positive changes, created infrastructure for continued plans and ideas, and fought for the education of students of Kentucky. The nominees for this award were Tyler Murphy, who is a teacher and also on the Fayette County School Board, Dr. Jason Glass, who's Commissioner of Education, Dr. Houston Barber, who's Frankfort School Superintendent, Representative Tina Bojanowski, and Senator Reggie Thompson. Today, we are honored to present the Kentucky Teachers in the Know 2021 Decision Maker Award to Commissioner Jason Glass. Dr. Glass is traveling though, and he did send us a video, but technical difficulties have caused us not to be able to share it today. So I do apologize, but we are going to try to upload it in the group later for everyone to be able to watch. So the next one is the Kentucky Teachers in the Know Member of the Year. With 24,000 plus members, it was quite the challenge to decide who should be nominated and then voted on for Member of the Year. What qualifications could and would set this individual apart from all the others? There are so many amazing people in the group. Ultimately, it was decided that a Member of the Year should be someone who made lasting impacts on education, someone who's active in the group and outside the group, who supports other members, has created or done something that positively impacts the lives of students and colleagues across the state. The nominees for this award were Tiffany Perkins from Knott County. She was the 2021 Special Education Teacher of the Year. Matt Hooks, who's a special education teacher and author of multiple children's books. Michelle Koenig, who's a co-administrator for Kentucky Parents in the Know. Heidi Givens, creator and moderator of Twitter Deaf Ed Chat and also owner of Mind Blue. Keith Frazier, who's a Floyd County bus driver, and the KESPA president who fought for and won a bargaining contract in Floyd County. And Karen Guffey, retired school social worker and public ed advocate, and Jessica Dueñas, former administrator in JCPS and Kentucky Teacher of the Year. That, my friends, is an amazing group of people to choose from. But our 2021 Kentucky Teachers in the Know Member of the Year is Karen Guffey. And I'm not gonna give her a choice if she gets to speak or not, but she's gonna speak. If somebody's taking pictures, I hope you send them to me later. I won't give you the mic.
I want you to know, as a daughter of a retired teacher, and my daughter who's here taking pictures is a teacher actively, two aunts who are teachers, and a grandmother that was a teacher, there was no way I was not going to be in the school system. As a retired school social worker, though, I continue to support every way I can in the legislature and in the community all the hard work that you all do in education. Whatever part of Kentucky you're in, I'm going to support you because I believe in you, and I think our future can look really wonderful as long as we continue to support public education.
See why we picked her? She's pretty amazing. I don't think I've been anywhere in the last 3 to 4 years advocating for public ed that lady wasn't there. We call her our keeper of the pictures, but she posts all the pictures. She makes sure that we're all in them. And then if anything comes up later in the future, she knows right where the picture was that she needs to share again. So she's our picture taker, and we love her dearly. The next 4 awards were chosen by Kentucky Teachers in the Know administration. Each was named after someone who embodies the essence of that particular award, someone who has a lifelong impact on public ed in Kentucky. Each award winner was chosen based on those same qualifications. These 4 awards will bring together people who have already changed the system for the better and people who are and will continue to have lasting impacts on the lives of educators and students. The first of these awards is the Jacqueline Coleman Excellence in Teacher Leadership Award. We all know Jacqueline Coleman is a former teacher and administrator who now serves as our Lieutenant Governor. Previously served as the Secretary of Education Workforce Development and sits as an ex officio member of the Kentucky Board of Education. The recipient of this award embodies the characteristics of a true leader, serving from the classroom, not just an administrative position. This teacher takes on the heartache and the thrill of leading without the compensation, certification, or recognition. A teacher leader makes a choice to stand up for his or her colleagues, uses their voice to speak up for the rights of all educators, and often stands alone, but does so happily. This person does this without recognition or stardom. This person does it because they want to show all teachers how to be self-advocates, how to appropriately take on the issues facing public ed, and is willing to take the heat so that others may focus on their students. We believe the winner of this award fits this description perfectly. Her involvement in teacher advocacy, education policy, and various leadership roles, including being an education lobbyist, just barely touches on her identity as a teacher leader. She has dedicated her life to teaching and to improving the education system. She has struggled with adversity and pushback from people who don't understand her level of passion and dedication. But she continues on because she knows doing the right thing is not always the easy thing. Her efforts have already and will continue to have lasting impacts on public education in JCPS and across the state. When she stands up for public ed, it's all for all of public ed, each and every teacher, employee, and most importantly, student. It is my honor to present the 2021 Jacqueline Coleman Excellence in Teaching Leadership Award to Emily Mckiernan of the Jefferson County School System. And I almost had to use my tissues on that one. And you're going to hide it.
It's called With Itness, and all teachers have it. So I never wanted to be a leader. When people would ask, when are you going to be a principal? When are you going to be a counselor? Those are things that I never actually wanted to have. I would love nothing more than to shut my classroom door and be with my students and never be involved with politics, but my students keep dying. And it made me have to stand up, including just last week, one of my students was shot and killed. So my students are the reason why I do everything that I do. And it was important to me to show my colleagues and my peers that when we all stand up, we can do better for our students, because our students are why we do everything that we do. And when you advocate for teachers, you advocate for students too. And it's my goal to try to make it so that all of our teachers can stand up and know that they can have a strong voice from their classroom without having to leave and shut the door forever. Thank you.
I think I have this video.
Do I?
Hello to my fellow Kentucky teachers. This is Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman. First of all, allow me to say thank you for all of the hard work that you've done throughout this last year and a half. As an educator, I know how stressful it's been. The pandemic has forced us all to adapt and to make sacrifices, and I am proud to say that you, our teachers, have met this challenge with courage and compassion. COVID-19 might be unprecedented, but the work that continues to be done by our schools is not. Our teachers are leaders in their classrooms, in their communities, and we would not be where we are today without you. You have gone beyond the bounds of your duties to make sure that no child goes without food, support, and learning, whether they've been in the school building or at home, or whether that's during the summer or the school year. Each day you face uncertainty and are asked to adapt on the fly. That is no easy task, but you have risen to it at every turn. All of you are hopeful reminders of the incredible work being done across the Commonwealth. You are influencing young minds in incredibly positive ways, lifting children out of cycles of abuse, poverty, and addiction, inspiring students to take risks when you know they can succeed, setting our kids on the right path. With that in mind, it is my privilege to congratulate the winner of this year's Jacqueline Coleman Leadership in Teaching Award, Emily Mckiernan. Emily, not only are you a role model for your students, but for your colleagues as well. You set the example day in and day out, and I cannot thank you enough. So congratulations.
Teach or have Lieutenant Governor Coleman teach Dr. Glass how to send videos that can then be forwarded on. The next award is the Dr. Aaron Thompson Equity and Education Award. Honors individuals or groups who have expanded educational opportunities for students of color, students with learning exceptionalities, our LGBTQ communities, and those who are twice exceptional. This award recognizes a recipient for their advocacy, teacher leadership, and influence on public education in the areas of equity, inclusion, and diversity for all students. The individual or individuals chosen go above and beyond the work of teaching to include work inside and outside the classroom that promotes equity and inclusion. They are well known within their local communities and extended networks of advocates. They often take on challenging assignments and stances to ensure messages that are a fair and equitable education for all students are heard and accepted. They're often victimized by the negative mindset of a society unaccepting of those who they perceive to be different. This year's recipients are dedicated individuals from the Jefferson County school system. They have dedicated their teaching careers to bringing equity for all in education to the forefront of minds of leadership, home, school, and community. The work they have done and continue to do resonates across the Commonwealth with all students and educators. It would be flippant of us not to pay attention to the progress they are making with students. Some of those students, including our performers today. They do that through music, art, debate, and discussion. These two teachers are giving space and time to our minority students so they may change the hearts and minds of others. The work their students are doing will have lasting impact on our public school system for many years to come. The 2021 and first-time winners of the Dr. Aaron Thompson Equity and Education Award are Matthew Kaufman and Irie Clayton of the Jefferson County Schools. Dr. Thompson, would you like to
Thank you.
He doesn't mind to talk.
Do you want to lead us in a chant? No. Oh,
Oh, come on, do it. Do it.
I'll do it. What do we want? When do we want it? Now. What do you say? More? What do you want? Justice. When do you want it? Now. So that is the organization that we started, Justice Now. Our mission is to empower students to be the change as we make Louisville our classroom and justice our curriculum. It is an interdisciplinary approach to create intersectional justice. So our students are fighting for acceptance and equal rights for all people. They're fighting for clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. They're fighting against environmental racism. They're fighting for a curriculum where they can see themselves in it. And they're fighting for community investment and reform. We believe we are empowering our students to become today's citizen lobbyists. NYRE students, young prodigies, passed the Crown Act this past year. Today's entrepreneurs, today's nonprofit leaders, and tomorrow's legislators. We couldn't do this work without our students. They're the ones leading the way once we get out of the way, and they are our now and they are our future, as NYRE says. Thank you.
As an advocate myself, you all hear me? Okay. As an advocate myself and someone who's willing to do whatever it takes to make our education system the best that it can be, I found quickly that voice, transparency, open door, bipartisanship, and compromise were of utmost importance. As a teacher, I wanted our voices heard and respected, but I quickly found out there was another voice in the room that was just as important, actually more important. Several years ago, I was invited as a Hope Street Fellow to a Kentucky Student Voice Team celebration. It was there that my love and advocacy for student voice developed and grew. It was an aha moment for me as a teacher that I'd been listening to the wrong people all along. My students knew what they needed, knew what was best for them, and could advocate for themselves when given the opportunity. Along the way, I met a young man who I can honestly call one of my very many heroes in education. Andrew is a force to be reckoned with in the advocacy world of student voice. Andrew is the co-founder of the Kentucky Student Voice Team, which now has over 100 members from across the state. In 2020, he was named the National Geographic Education Fellow and a Forbes 30 Under 30 honoree. Today, he's pursuing his master's in education policy from Harvard. The Andrew Brennan Student Voice Award is to be awarded to a Kentucky public school student who exemplifies the importance of student voice and choice in the classroom, school and district decision-making, and state-level influence on policy and procedure. This person or group represents all students in Kentucky in a professional and exemplary manner. Their voice has positive impacts on all students in our public schools. This person is engaged, active, and influential. Their presence at the decision-making table will have positive influence and impacts for years. This year's recipient serves on the Commissioner Student Advocacy Panel and is the first student ever in our state to be appointed as an ex officio member of the Kentucky Board of Education. Her voice, thoughts, and ideas are heard by us all every meeting, and I can assure you we listen. She is probably the most respected member of the board because when she speaks truth. No matter how difficult it is for us to hear or accept, she's brave and honorable. I started to tell you today that I wanted to be her when I grow up, but I think we're already two of the same soul. She makes me proud as a colleague. This is why I needed tissues. As a parent and as an educator and a friend. I look forward to seeing where this young lady leads, what she accomplishes for herself, and what lasting impact she has on society. It is with her advocacy and the and that of the rest of the Kentucky Student Voice Team that fought without hesitation to keep both the student and the teacher's seats on the Kentucky Board of Education. If it had not been for their voices and their will to do whatever it took, I'm positive we would have lost our seats and the seats for any future students and teachers. I'm not sure I could be any more proud of her as if she were my own daughter. This year, we are glad and honored to award Soyana Mesvin as with the Andrew Brennan Student Voice Award. Of course she'll speak. I said no. I have tissues.
mentor in Brennan. I adore him and I adore the work, and the empire that he's built is so amazing. And as we work to create just such a diverse student voice movement, each and every student needs to be heard. So I thank you all so very much. This is dedicated to students and to my teachers. Thank you.
Bear with me, this next one, that might take a little longer. I'm going to introduce an award and a speaker kind of all at the same time. I had a lot of stuff written about this person, but I think I'm just going to talk for a minute. Very glad to have with us today Dr. Stephen Pruitt, who is a former Commissioner of Education in Kentucky, one that we were all very proud to have and to know. I'm going to tell a bit how we met. Honestly, before I got involved in all this stuff, I didn't even really know what a commissioner was. Didn't know what they did, didn't know what their purpose was, how impactful and important they were for Kentucky schools. I was one of those teachers that I walked into my classroom every day, I did my job, I took care of my students, and I went home. Until that education impacted my own family. And when my son was diagnosed with dyslexia, I decided something needed to be done about it. And at that time, I was also involved in the Kentucky State Hope Street group. And we were talking about the new commissioner who was coming to Kentucky, and that he could, have impacts on schools. So I was invited to a preacher committee meeting where he was going to be speaking. I believe it was one of your first speaking engagements. And I was so excited to meet him and have this conversation about what we needed to do about dyslexia in Kentucky. And he spoke, and then he said, and I'm leaving, and he went out the side door. He said, I've got lots to do, and I chased him down. And we met in that lobby of the place where the conference was that day, the event, and I gave him my quick elevator spiel about dyslexia, and he gave me his card, and he said, call me, and we'll talk. And we did. This man called me back, and we had probably an hour-long conversation during my planning period at school one day. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you or not, but the high school actually went on lockdown, and I was teaching at the middle school while we were having that conversation. And I was so engrossed in the conversation that I didn't realize we had also been put on lockdown. So after the conversation, I got up and went to class, where my principal was like, why are you in the hallway? And he threw me in a closet somewhere, I think. But that was how good the conversation was. And I think the conversation continued to be that great from that point on. A few weeks later, I got an email from him, and he said, how would you like to be on the Kentucky Department of Education Dyslexia Task Force? And I think I cried. I think I jumped up and down and squealed a little bit and screamed and probably cried some more. But of course, that was an amazing experience. And the plan we came up with that day then eventually became law in Kentucky for children with dyslexia. And I can't thank him enough for the time and the effort he put into that. And I know he believes in children and doing whatever it takes. And I think that's why the award today that we put at the end is very important to me. And he's very important to me, and I'm very glad you could be here today. So the Dr. Stephen Pruitt Innovation, Inspiration, and Education Award is to be awarded to an individual in our public schools who exemplifies what it's meant to be an educator in every sense of the word, in the classroom and out of it. Someone whose dedication goes above and beyond expectation. Someone's not only a teacher, but a role model for his or her students. A devoted member of the community and a leader in the profession. A person with a servant's heart who believes in students first and is always growing as an educator. This individual has demonstrated the ability to persevere through difficult times and situations with an unmatched level of positivity and a whole lot of grit. As a teacher, this person finds ways to meet the needs of his students through innovative techniques, ideas, and circumstances. The person awarded is not only an inspiration to their colleagues, but their students and community as well. This year's recipient is of outstanding merit locally, at the state level, and nationally as a lieutenant in the National Guard and a high school math teacher. While teaching in the classroom January 2021, he's quite literally called to serve and deployed to DC as a platoon leader, protecting our nation's capital. When he wasn't busy guarding our capital, he was teaching his dual credit seniors virtually who were back home in Round County. He spent about 4 months protecting our nation's capital and teaching at the same time, while many of us were home struggling with just learning how to turn on the Zoom and making sure kids showed up. When he isn't away on duty, he's often also a football coach, was a swim coach, a husband, and a dad to his pride and joys, Hannah and Savannah. I can personally tell you as a friend and someone who teaches right down the hall, he worries more than he should works harder than he has to, cares more than most, and genuinely loves being a lieutenant and a teacher. He's told me more than once that he feels most accomplished when his soldiers and his students are accomplished. He's a leader who puts those in the charge of himself ahead of himself, and that is why, with great pleasure, I present the Dr. Stephen Pruitt Innovation, Inspiration, and Education Award to Lieutenant Samuel Warhead.
This right here is a shared effort. First off, I'd like to say thank each and every one of you all, Allison. I appreciate what you do for public education, and all of you, what you do for public education. I mean, you guys are awesome. So I really thank you for that. As for me, I surround myself with people who inspire me and who mentor me. I've got people like Teresa Plank and Brett Redwine who mentor me. I've got Jeff Taylor and Kyle Bradley and Steve Dowdy who never failed to encourage me when I needed. I think we all need it sometimes. And then you have people who inspire you. And for me, I have people like Gabe Delta-Brand, Michael Short, and April Atkins, who is probably one of the smartest people that I know. Sometimes there's those people that have those tough conversations with you. I have my brother and my sister, Jack and Michelle Whitehead. They take the filters off of them, man. They sometimes have tough conversations, but tell me what I need to hear, and they're always pointing. And finally, I'd like to thanks. I've been pulled to several locations since COVID hit, and she was pregnant at the time, the first time I left, and so then we had our second child. And while I'm being pulled in all these directions and gone so much, she's at home making sure the kids are going to the pediatrician. She's making sure that they're learning how to count and stuff. And to me, there's your educator of the year right there. She's done it all by herself through most of it, man. Honey, I love you. And I couldn't have done this without you. So, thank you all for what you all have done, and God bless.
Well, my notes say we go to lunch. Do we need to do that again? So first, Dr. Stephen Pruitt is going to come up and give us some words of wisdom about public education.
Hi. Isn't it nice to be in a meeting where you didn't actually have to all say, you need to unmute yourself? I know some of us are online, so maybe you had to unmute yourself, but it's nice to be seeing people in 3 dimensions. It was just so underrated before, and now to actually get to see people is so fantastic. It's great to be here. Several of you have asked, and we have moved back to Atlanta, and I'm working for the Southern Regional Education Board. But, what's neat about here in this place is, I spent my first 40 plus years in Georgia. My mom and dad are there, both the kids are there. But what I can honestly say is today we're home. We spent a relatively short time here in Kentucky, but it was easily the most impactful time that I've had. And so getting to be here, missing fall. Wow, it's so nice to be in Kentucky in fall. In Georgia, you only have 4 seasons if you count football. Because there's no real fall season, so it's great to be here. Words of wisdom. I don't know that I've ever considered that I would have words of wisdom on things. But I guess, I have to start by just simply saying thank you Nobody goes into this work hoping that you get any kind of accolade beyond what you're able to do for students. And having an award named after you is pretty cool. And so thank you for that. Probably as close as I'll get to any Hall of Fame. But you know what? I'll take it. And so I just want to say first, thank you. But when I was thinking about what I was going to say today, I considering what the name of the award is around innovation, I'm pretty proud of a lot of the stuff that we did together when I was here. And frankly, I'm proud of several things I've done since. The dyslexia work that we did was incredible. In fact, what I don't know if you know is we got the same thing passed in Georgia last year. In fact, it's kind of I'm feeling a little deja vu because they're now writing the reg for the law. And you'll never guess who they called to come ask to come and be the facilitator of the group. So there I go again. I get to go and, this is amazing to think that there's actually different points of view on how something should be implemented. But it'll be fun. And so I'm excited about getting to do that. We got to do a lot of cool stuff. And some of it even lasted in the transition. I didn't, but hey, there was a lot of other things that did. And I was real proud of that. But when it comes to thinking about innovation, kind of went out. Y'all can hear me okay, right? Yeah. I'm a pretty loud guy. So, I think about what innovation is, and I think in a lot of ways it comes down to two things. I think first it comes down to inspiration. What inspires you? For me, there's a lot of things. Any of you that were ever in my office when I was commissioner know that I had this little nook in the back that I kind of referred to as my thinking room. And in that room were all pictures from days of my days in the classroom. It was students I taught. It was things about science education, which is where my heart has always been. And it's the things that whenever I was thinking about something or trying to do something special, it was knowing I needed to go back to that place. Back to, the young lady named Brandy that tried to sleep in my class every day. I had her second period, 10 o'clock, and she was going to be snoozing. She had a pretty rough life. She was, I know that her home life was tough. And even though we could never prove it, I was pretty sure that she was, had some chemical issues at the time. But then, you get an email from her, a Facebook message from her 15 years later, telling you that she's about to graduate with her BSN and becoming a nurse, and telling you, I did this because I had that hand on my shoulder every morning at 10:15 telling me you needed me to be with you that day. Or the 6'4", 250-pound cross-country runner who should never have run cross-country, who ran a 35-minute 5K, his first ever race, and ran a 23-minute his last race. And gives you that big bear hug at the finish line and whispers, "Thanks for never giving up on me." That's inspiration. And the one that's probably been my biggest one, besides my kids, one of them is now an educator, and the other one has just graduated from UK last May, and she's actually working in sales for cybersecurity. But they always talk about, there's this horrible saying, and it's horrible because it's so factually inaccurate, that behind every great man is a great woman. Well, I got to tell you, mine was never behind. In fact, I quit wearing ties a long time ago because I got tired of her pulling me. Because if I was going anywhere, it's because she had a vision to help me get there. And really and truly, I can say I became a commissioner because one night I got so mad at her because she told me how limited my classroom was making me. And I was like, you know how hard I work? You know, she was a pharmacist. What do you know about being an educator? So I didn't talk to her for a couple hours. And then right before we were going to bed, I said, what do you mean by that? She said, you are incredibly creative and innovative for the kids in your classroom, but the kids that are not in your classroom aren't benefiting from you. Well, crap. How do you stay mad at that? So then after that's when I started going, well, I guess I should be on that committee that I got asked to be on. I guess I should go and do more with the Science Teachers Association or with the Department of Ed. And kind of like Emily, I didn't have the intention of being a leader. I was not a principal. I never was, never wanted to be. Then all of a sudden I found myself in charge of science education in Georgia. And then I found myself in charge of science ed, or the science ed standards for the country. And then the best part of getting to come here. And you know, the real inspiration, though, came later when she was willing to live what she also pushed me to do. So after 28 years of being a pharmacist, you know, you get pretty comfortable. When we left Kentucky, she decided she was going to go be a high school science teacher. So she's sitting right back there. She's a big inspiration. She teaches high school physics, and it's been an incredible ride with her. And it's helped me always keep clear. Not to mention she asked me about it once a day. So what do you do different today? So that's inspiration. But the other part of this is vision. You know, when a person looks at something, an optimist looks at it and they see how the light hits it. Whether it be art, whether it be, you know, drama, whatever it is they are looking at, the scene that they are looking at, an optimist looks at it and sees a light. A pessimist looks at whatever they're seeing and sees darkness, and they see all that's wrong. An innovator sees both, but more importantly, sees how they can change the picture. It's what I've tried to do, and in my few minutes getting to talk to Samuel, both of those things. And so I hadn't fully decided what I was going to talk about today until I got a chance to talk to you. And you actually showed both of those. One of them was you said, I just did what I did because I thought I was just doing my job to protect my students and to protect my country. Clearly that inspiration is there. Then he told me how in high school, when they came across the field to say what they wanted to do, he wanted to be in the military, he wanted to be a math teacher. He saw the picture. He saw the world. So if any of us are ever going to change the world, we need to always remember what our inspiration was. And we always need to remember that our vision, regardless sometimes of how hard it is to see and the whole picture of what we want to do may not always come to fruition immediately. It gets there. And if we do that, then we get to be a spark of inspiration for the rest of the world. So thank you so much for this honor, for letting me be here with you today, and for giving me a reason to come back to Kentucky. I'm back in 2 weeks. I'm actually pretty excited about that. I'll be at KSBA and getting to share some stuff there. But thank you so much for giving us a reason to come to Kentucky and for this wonderful honor. So thank you very much. And have a great day.
forgot to share one thing about Dr. Pruitt that I am going to share before I move on. The day that I was named to the Kentucky Board of Education, of course, was a day I'll never forget. I was in Frankfurt for the inaugural parade and all of that good stuff, and we knew the announcement was going to be made. We had no idea when. So we'd been in the parade, we'd had the programs and all the wonderful stuff, and we'd had to park back at the Sauer building, I believe. So we were being bussed back. Announcement still had not been made. Getting on the bus to go back, and lots of teachers on the bus with me and my colleagues. And I get a text from a random number. Didn't have the number in my phone. I knew later then that was Eric Kennedy, if you all know Eric. And it just simply said, your phone is about to blow up. And I thought, uh-oh, wonder what that means. Well, then a few seconds later, my phone literally just about blew up. The tweets, and I believe Olivia might have been one of them, and the Facebook posts and things that I was being tagged in were unreal. And my phone was literally just blowing up. But it was all stuff from social media. And the tweets were quite funny. It was, the old board is out. The next one, there's a new board. There's a teacher on the board. Don't know a name. They're being sued. Oh wait, it's Allison Sloan from Round County. And they literally went like that. But then my phone had a different notification, and it was a private message. And it was the very first person to reach out to me and say, congratulations, they picked that person. And that was Dr. Pruitt. He was the first one to say something to me today personally, and that meant a lot to me. I just wanted to make sure I said that. I think I turned my pages too far, probably because I don't need to read anything to announce this next person. Our next speaker is a dear friend of mine and a colleague on the Kentucky Board of Education. They didn't give either of us voting privileges, and they probably were smart in doing that. However, that does not stop us from talking and voicing our opinions, which we both do quite frequently. Dr. Aaron Thompson is the president of the Council on Post-Secondary Education. Dr. Thompson's life story is one you won't soon forget, and was the first thing I ever heard him speak about at my first KBU meeting. He was seated next to me to this side, and we were all telling our stories on how we got to where we were, and I was glad he went after me, because I would not have wanted to follow that story. I just remember being very grateful for that moment. I already said all that. Anyway, this man is someone who is untouched by anyone I've ever met in his work, his love for education, his pride in what he does, and the pride we all have in him. I strive to show such a level of dedication to this profession, a level of positivity and an unheard level of solutions-oriented decision-making. Today, Dr. Thompson is going to speak to us about leadership and equity in our public schools. Here at the Kentucky Teachers in the Know Conference for a Cause. And he also wanted me, he thought I wouldn't say it. He wanted me to tell you all he's single too. Okay, I'm going to welcome Dr. Thompson up to speak to us. You should know not to dare me.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm going to get you back now.
Hey, I had the Madonna mic up there for him that went around his face if he wanted it.
That's okay. Good afternoon. First of all, Allison, Jamie, thank you for the invitation. Allison, there's several things I want to say, but Jason, I'll tell you later. If you don't know Jason, it's truly Allison's inspiration. So Jason, I appreciate you putting up with her this long. It takes a village. Listening to Stephen talking about the dyslexia work here in Kentucky, and Allison, I have a daughter that's dyslexic also. And I'm very proud to have been one of the people who kind of helped shape the bill for Kentucky around dyslexia. And so there's so much that we can talk about when we talk about equity, but Allison told me I only had 10 minutes. With anticipation, I'd take 30, but I won't. Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I want to say that I'm Sara Thompson's father. It's getting to a point now where we have to pass, the baton, and Sara is the person I'm passing the baton to, so don't screw it up, baby girl. She'll be talking here in a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on in Kentucky that she's actually very engaged with. When you're asked to talk about equity, when you're asked to talk about leadership, all of that truly is a situation whereby that you could spend days and not even get to a point where it would make sense to not keep talking about. But I'm going to be very specific today. I am not a political, well, I'd say that and I end up being political all the time. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have to worry about when it comes to both of those in Kentucky. And the charge, I'm going to give a charge today. I don't have magic, Stephen, in my left hand like you do yours, but, hopefully there'll be some magic in our mouths and in our hearts as we proceed, as we move forward, because we're being challenged at a level that we've never been challenged at. And I'm not just talking about teachers here, even though I've been one for over 30 plus years, hard to believe, but I'm talking about as our learners, as the folks that we purport that we love. As that group of us who are part of the choir, and we're part of the choir because we do believe in both of those, but we believe in our young people. We believe in our children. I was with Lou on Friday at another meeting, and I made this statement, Lou, I'll make it again. Fairly often we get in rooms like this and we are talking to the choir. Our problem is simply this. Allison wanted me to be inspirational, but it sounds like I'm being not so much, but our problem is this. We may be a part of the choir, and this is an academic word, but we suck at singing. The idea that if we are in the situation whereby that we know that we're being hit with all these pieces that will, in fact, hurt the learning process of our young people, we as educators, we as part of the choir, we have to learn to sing better. So I'm going to take the role of a choir conductor today in my conversation around equity and leadership and say that leadership also, Stephen, has the ability to create a dynamic of advocacy that creates that groundswell of people being more than they ever thought about being. It creates an opportunity for us to look at each other and challenge each other to go to that next level. It creates the opportunity to see people that are not engaged with the focus of where we should be engaged and help them to understand how they can be engaged. So today I'm asking us to think about that truly as a part of the choir and our ability to sing. And we have our own places and we have our own ways of singing. Allison and Jamie sings a little bit different than I do. They're not nearly as good, but they sing. But their voices are heard by 24,000 people at the minimum. That's a choir. So their leadership opportunity is to help that choir to sing better, right? And it doesn't matter necessarily if we have to be the voice all the time. It doesn't matter if we have to be the conductor all the time. What matters is, though, that we have the ability to create more conductors. That's what leadership is. It's the ability to communicate, but communicate with a message that has a meaning about where we're going. In a few minutes, I'll talk about that even more in depth. Somebody told me one time, they said, Thompson, if you're ever going to reach anyone, you've got to reach them at a level that they've never been reached. That's called empathy, right? That's called digging deep and going way beyond any place you may have been based on your race, gender, ethnicity, gender identity, or whatever, and say that because of that person's unique experience, I can find some uniqueness in me that will connect with that person at a level that I can understand where they're coming from. 4 elements that create success in all of us. And I tell people, if you don't believe me, buy one of my books. I talk about it there. One is, and imagine this. Imagine if you were creating 100% success in the child that you're serving. That child has a greater chance of being successful if each one of these 4 elements had equal power. I noticed one of the recipients of the award had equality here. Wish we could get there, right? God, what an utopian idea. We have to shoot for it. May not ever get it, but we're going to talk about equity as a way to get there. But 25% worth if all of our kids came to us, number one, from the family that had the perfect ideology around education. They had all the right amount of knowledge to pass down while the child was in utero and read to them. By the time they got to be in, the kindergarten, the first grade, they were just perfect, right? If the family had the kind of money it took to get that child any necessary resources he or she may need, perfect. So if the family was worth 25% of the positive of that 100%, if all families were there, we wouldn't have a problem in many cases around blaming families for not doing their part, would we? The second one, community. If community members did all the things that they needed to do, at the banks, at the churches, at the, all the folk did all the things they needed to do, especially with peers, which is the strongest part of a mentoring system, the strongest part of a community system. If the peers did all the things they needed to do, Andrew, if the students had a voice at the level they needed to have a voice all the time in the community, and if all students were helping other students to be successful, think about that. 25% of the worth. So now the family in a perfect mode, the community in a perfect mode, doing what they need to do makes up 50%. What's the other two? Well, the third one will be the educational institution that child will belong to, right? If that educational institution were teaching all the things it needed to teach, the true history, not the fake history, if it was teaching all the pieces they needed to, if everybody had the right pedagogical, dispositional attitudes, if they had the right curriculum, if they were doing everything they needed to do, then wow, can you imagine that? If they were funded, if they paid the teachers what they needed to get paid, if all the things are perfect, boy, just think, 75% of the worth. The last one would be the child, him or herself. If she or he had the ability to hear everything coming to them in that positive tone, in that inspirational tone, if they had the ability to turn negatives into positives, if they had the ability to know that they could reach any limit that they wanted to reach, nobody would hold them back, if that child knew how to recognize everything that he or she didn't have to be successful, and if that child knew how to go and find out what they needed to be successful, then wow, 100% of the worth. We would have 100% of success in society. We wouldn't have to worry about the economy. We wouldn't have to worry about the educated workforce. We would have equality. Guess what? We don't. But what we do have is a chance to build equity into an unequal system. And that comes in that third bucket more than any other bucket. It comes in with our schools, it comes in with our teachers, it comes in because those teachers are going to have to emulate all the things that they may not get in the home or they may not get in the community. Those teachers are going to have to be mentors. Those teachers are going to have to say, come on, child, I know we can't hug, but I need to hug you because I know you need a hug. I may even have to feed you because you're not getting food at home. That teacher is going to have to be the person that helps that child to know how to turn negatives into positives, how to get resources, how not to just get the fish to eat the first time, but how to fish for it for a lifetime. Our education system is far more powerful than anybody gives us credit for, including myself. But we don't give ourselves enough credit for the totality of the ability that we have to put equity into an unequal system. That's the power of leadership, the power of service. That's the power of exactly the conversations we need to be advocating about. We are letting ourselves fall to the dynamics of responding to people that don't understand what we do. Advocacy is about understanding exactly where we're coming from, where people are trying to take us, and then what do we need to do about both? That's leadership. One of the things I will leave you with, and I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the power of education. Some of you know that I came from eastern Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky, Appalachia. I was born in a log cabin with a dirt floor on a sharecropper's farm. My father was an illiterate coal miner. Mother had an 8th grade education. I'm a first generation high school student. and now I'm the head of higher education for Kentucky. Education is powerful, folk. It's far more powerful than even what we realize as educators. I'm going to challenge us. My inspiration to you is to understand that power at the core level. Understand how we're connected to our core value system. Understand that we don't have spouses all the time, as Stephen does, that tell us that, hey, we can do better. But understand the power. 4 pieces I want you to remember. Allison knows this. Allison actually wrote a blurb on my latest leadership book. Thank you, Allison. And in that, I talk a little bit about how we build leadership and equity at the same time. The first one is called 8 to the 4th, by the way. But the first one is about awareness. What do we really know about our young people? How do we really understand where they're coming from? What do we really understand about them that's not stereotypical, but that is truth? How do we look at them in such a manner that we can make things happen if we understand what their baselines are? Awareness is about not finding yourself in a place that you don't seek out the truth of the people that you serve. Not getting bogged down with bias. Not finding ourselves, no matter what we claim to be, I don't care what religion you are or what other dynamic you may have, how do we not get bogged down with that? How do we build our IQ, our knowledge about the people that we serve? That's the first thing. You can't do anything else without that. That leads to the second A, which is acknowledgement that says this: whatever you believe about those people you serve will have an effect on those people that you serve. Period. Positive or negative. It will have an effect. Acknowledging it allows you then to understand the truth about your service. We call that social intelligence, which is higher than intellectual or knowledge-based intelligence. It leads to then acceptance. You are what you eat. If you say that you're this, if you say that you're an educator, you have to prove it out to the biggest element. If we still have gaps in our schools, if we still have a lot of things that are existing that we know is not servicing all of our students, then in fact we're not reaching the level that we argue that we're supposed to reach as an educator. Acceptance is about understanding that we don't have to be like that kid to know that kid and to serve that kid. That's called empathy. Empathy is about emotional intelligence, which is the highest form of intelligence. But the last one is action, and this is what I'm charging you to do. The last A is action. Action is about creating today. Don't let this conference for a cause end without a cause. Don't let it end without an action. Don't let it end without a process that you're going to implement that changes things different in a different positive way that you don't care how well you're doing that. How do we create an action process that makes it better? We got a lot of people that are talking about CRT. We got very few people even know what it is. We've got situations whereby that we have to wonder how we're going to be punished for teaching truth in schools. I'm not trying to be political. I would tell anybody this, by what I have if you follow me. This is about the idea that as educators, we have to make sure that we get it and not let someone else control it. How do we do that? Don't fully know. But we have to be action-packed, and we have to have a plan. So, as I end this, my charge to you is exactly who you are, whatever you do within the respective place that you work. It has to be something bigger than each of us or the dynamics that we have within us. That we're ever going to do the things we need to do as a choir. My ask of you is that we practice. That an action would be that we do whatever we can to sing the best we can, especially for those that need the service of our singing the most. Thank you all very much.
next part of our program today is the annual guest panel. For 3 years, we've invited guests from all parts of public education to discuss topics relevant to what we do as educators each and every day. This year, we decided to take a bit of a different path. Our educators are struggling now more than ever. Issues that we've dealt with for many years are twice as difficult to manage and are quickly becoming unmanageable. In the public's eyes, teachers are often looking visible, untouchable, and unbreakable. We can credit that to the smiles we force on our faces every day and the work ethics that are ingrained in us. This year, we thought it was time for people, even our own colleagues, to hear our stories. Our real stories, the ones that make you laugh, the ones that make you cry, and even the ones that make you leave the profession altogether. First, we'd like to welcome Patrice Mccrary as our moderator for this year. Ms. Mccrary is also a member of the Kentucky Board of Education. She is a retired kindergarten teacher who was named the Kentucky Teacher of the Year in 2011. Prior to that, she was named to the All-USA Today Teacher Team in 2007, inducted into the Kentucky Teacher Hall of Fame in 2008, and into the National Teacher Hall of Fame in 2009. And we did it again. Just right there is fine, so that she can just leave it right there. She can talk. Be fine. I need to do introductions, and then I'll hand it over to you. So, as we've said several times today, we've had to pivot a little bit, and we're going to pivot again. Some of our guests were unable to be with us today for various reasons, but we have one stand-in, and then we'll be the one down, but that's okay. So I'm going to first start with Jessica Dueñas, my friend, my hero, my advocacy partner in crime. Will bravely share with us today her personal trials and tribulations with the secret she kept as she was named Kentucky Teacher of the Year and became an administrator for an all-boys school in Jefferson County. Jessica's here today all the way from Florida to share her story. Next, we have Donnie Piercy, formerly not of Kentucky, will tell us why he came here and how he ultimately became the Kentucky Teacher of the Year, or current Kentucky Teacher of the Year. I'll tell you all, as I was watching the program last year, sitting in my classroom at McBrayer Elementary in Moorhead, doing the whole, please let it be Donnie, please let it be Donnie. I admit it. And then it was Donnie, and I'm pretty sure the people in the next classroom heard me scream, because I did. This is Donnie Piercy, our Kentucky Teacher of the Year. And then I'm just going to announce her as Dr. Thompson's daughter, Sara, because I don't know how to say her last name. I've practiced it, but I'm going to butcher it. So, who just happens to be the daughter of Dr. Thompson, as I said, started her career as a teacher, but somewhere along the way decided she'd rather change careers and be a stay-at-home mom. And today she will tell us what it's like to be the chair of a board of an organization that's helping children in Eastern Kentucky succeed, like her father did. And then we have a replacement for one of our members, my friend and colleague who teaches right down the hall. Lieutenant Samuel Whitehead will come up and join us on the stage. He is a math teacher in Round County High School and a lieutenant in the National Guard.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing day. We're honoring so many incredible individuals that make such a difference in the Commonwealth through education. And Aaron, I agree with you. Education has been my yellow brick road as well. So you all, I am amazed to be in your presence because of the movers and the shakers that you are. And up here on the stage, we have 4 heroes. If ever we have wondered if educators were heroic, we have seen that in the last 2 years. They are beyond heroic. They are frontline workers, and they have shown us just how critical they are to our society. So my heartfelt thank you to all of you. And before I go any further, Sara, I practiced your last name for a week. Sara Szymkowiak. Woo! I need a round of applause. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us. You all walk such different types of paths in the world of education, but in the same sense, you all had the same focus. So I'm eager for the audience to hear some of your answers to these questions. And I'm going to start with you, Jessica. You were named K-Toy during a time when public education was under fire, both at the state and the national levels. You chose to turn down the opportunity to meet the president at that time. Please explain to us that decision you made and why you made that particular decision.
Sure. I guess, oh, okay, the mic works. First, I just want to say thank you, KTITK, for inviting me and for flying me up from Florida. Like Dr. Pruitt said, it's really wonderful to be back here. I lived here for 8 years and served in Oldham County and Jefferson County, and now I work remotely with Dr. Barber in Frankfort Independent Schools, and I love this place, and it's always going to be my genuine second home after my hometown in New York. But to go back to your question, so yes, when I was named the State Teacher of the Year, it was 2019, and yes, public education was very active. I mean, it still is today in different forms, but then, you know, in Kentucky, teacher pensions were being targeted by the lawmakers, many of them, and then our president at the time, you know, put Betsy DeVos in place, who we know was championing charter schools and privatization and vouchers and all that. I remember when I was named, I knew nothing really about the State Teacher of the Year program, and I sat down to lunch with Donna Melton, who works with KDE, and she was like, and you get to do a White House visit. And I was like, oh, awesome. Do I have to meet the president? And she was like, yes. And I was like, I already knew I was not going to. And so first, put education to a side for a second, and like all the hate and all the divisiveness and all the woes that either people that were, like, I'm a first generation American, my mother was undocumented. So we already know the language that was spoken about people like my mother. Then I taught predominantly Black boys in Jefferson County Public Schools, and let's talk about the narrative around them. So between just all the hate that was being spiraled in this country and celebrated in this country, then let's go to education and the fact that we're like purposely targeting public schools and trying to take money away from them. I mean, it was literally, I think it was April, I was in Washington, D.C. in May, and in April, Betsy DeVos was here having conversations about privatizing education, and there weren't public school advocates there. Student journalists weren't even allowed there. And so how was I, as like the representative of teachers that year, supposed to walk in, smile at that person, shake his hand, and act like things were okay? I couldn't. I could not go back to my kids and be like, yeah, you know, like I just like smiled at the president at that time. And I was able to do so. I know there are several people in my cohort who also wanted to take the same action and couldn't, you know, so obviously like everybody was able to do what they could. And I was willing to take whatever consequences were gonna hit me, which were plenty in terms of like hate mail, social media hatred. My school's phones were like blowing up with like, you should fire that teacher, etc. But there was just no way that in my conscience, like when I become, God willing, if I become an old woman and I die in my bed, I will forever be grateful that that was a choice that I made. I will never ever regret that choice because I needed to do the right thing by my students, by my family, and by myself, and I was not going to. And the other thing, was the argument with politicizing education, right? And like, oh, well, that teacher is bringing politics into her classroom and that shouldn't be happening. I didn't ask for that. Like when I went to school to be a teacher, I didn't ask to step into a political arena, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't. That arena was brought to us when politics started to attack us in education. So it was what it was, and you know, I don't regret it, and I know people hated it, and oh well. Like, I still wouldn't do it, so that was why I did not meet the president.
Stand strong, Jessica. Stand strong. Donnie, let's shift gears just a little bit. Now, you are not originally from Kentucky, so tell us how you became a teacher in Kentucky.
All right, well, first I want to thank Allison for flying me in from Lexington. So I grew up in Massachusetts, right? I graduated from high school in 2000, and I feel like there's more universities than people sometimes in Boston, where I grew up. So wanted to do something different and started to look at just schools across the country. Discovered Asbury College. Now it's Asbury University, Asbury College, and I figured, why not? Let's move to Wilmore, Kentucky. I became a Wilmore-on for 4 years and came down here. And I always planned on moving back, but I ended up meeting my wife, and she kind of convinced me to stick around. But my senior year of college, I was ready to graduate with a degree in theology. And I remember, my wife and I were dating at the time, and she, I don't want to say she gave me an ultimatum, but basically said like, hey, maybe you should start to look for a degree that you could actually make some money in. So I chose public education. Yeah, dozens of dollars in public ed. But anyway, so I had worked for 7 summers at a Salvation Army summer camp just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where they took kids from the inner city and brought them out to the country for a week. And it was such a unique experience. And I started to think of, hey, maybe this is something that I could do. I mean, people told me I seemed to do okay with working with kids, and decided to pursue an alternative certification, which is nice. Got my master's right away. And I've been teaching now. I got hired in, graduated in December of 2006, and the following summer I started my first job. I worked at Simmons Elementary School in Woodford County, Kentucky. And I used to have a Boston accent, but it's long gone. It's long faded.
Well, I think I can speak for all of us in saying we're glad that your wife grabbed hold of your tie and pulled you this direction. Now you quit wearing them, you're out of luck.
We'll turn it live.
Okay, we're going to move to Sara for just a moment for this next question. Now we've heard from your dad today, that was phenomenal, Aaron, incredible. And you have quite a legacy of education in your family. So how was that decision to follow in the footsteps of Dr. Aaron Thompson? Was it an easy one, or was this more difficult for you to make?
Okay, we're good? All right. Well, I just want to say, I don't know how you got flown from Lexington, because I'm from Louisville and I didn't get a plane ticket. So, just throw that out there. As far as my dad, you heard him get up here and joke, and I always tell my dad that my goal in life is to introduce him as Sara Szymkowiak's father, and not to be introduced as Aaron Thompson's daughter. So I am working towards that goal. But Dad, you spoke about some of the things I was going to speak about, so you kind of just ruined my presentation here. But, so as you heard him say, my father's father, my grandfather, was an illiterate coal miner. And my father's mother, my grandmother, was a sharecropper with an 8th grade education. And the one thing that they taught my dad was education is powerful. Education is the key. And so he continued in education, and when I was little, he went to get his PhD and became a professor. So my whole entire childhood was spent in a college classroom, whether that was, obviously I went to school, but the days I was off of school, during the summers, when I was sick, I was always in a classroom. So the one thing that I think that my parents really instilled in me was a classroom was always a place of home. It was always a place where I felt welcome. It was always a place where you could introduce new ideas and innovations. I never felt intimidated by being in a classroom. So that in turn, after my dad finished getting his PhD, my mother went back to get her master's. And at one point, I had my father working at UKU and my mother working at UK. And it was quite a legacy. And I decided that while I love teaching, I love education, I love the classroom, I did not want to be associated with my parents at all. So I became an elementary teacher. I love kids, and I love their passion for learning, and I felt like I could make that classroom an inclusive place for them and make it feel like I did. And it wasn't until I've gotten older that I can now embrace my family's legacy and hopefully continue in his footsteps.
I think I've heard a couple of buttons pop down here, being so proud of you and what you're doing, Sara. We also have Samuel here, and while teaching in itself, we have to juggle a great deal. That's a full-time job, but you have 2 full-time jobs. You are a math teacher and you are a lieutenant in the National Guard. Now, as if that's not enough, let's throw in that you're also a football coach, you're a husband, and you're a dad. How do you manage all of this? How do you balance it? How do you find that balance?
Well, first off, I wouldn't say that they're both full-time jobs. They're both certainly careers. But as far as balancing goes, I don't really have like a magic formula for it. It's just kind of like if I go to the classroom, I'm a teacher there. Then I go to the football field, I'm a football coach. And then when I go to drill, when I put the uniform on, I'm a soldier, I'm an officer, and those are the tasks at hand. And then whenever I go home, I have to go back to being a husband and a father. So again, there's really no magic recipe for that. It's just, you go to that element, and then you take on the task at hand, and then you do the best that you can. And to me, I think balance is, a lot of people think that that's just, you're putting equal effort and time into each of those domains. There's no way to do that. It's just, again, it's you got to be what you are in that specific point in time there. So that's all I got about that. I'm sorry I don't have jokes like the other three do.
But we do appreciate you. We appreciate your service, and we appreciate you finding the ability to handle all that you do. We're going to do the shifting microphone again and come back down to Jessica just for a moment. You were an administrator at an all-boys school in Jefferson County. Tell us about a challenge that you overcame in that role, and tell us about an experience there that you'll never forget.
Sure. So to clarify in terms of administrators, so I helped, I was a part of the founding staff of the WB Du Bois Academy, which opened in Jefferson County in 2018. First year there, I was a teacher. I was a special ed teacher, ECE. And then the second year, my administrative role was, in Jefferson County, they call them ECE implementation coaches, which Dr. Marty Polio just put in layman's terms, really director of special education for the school. And so that was like my first time stepping outside of the traditional classroom. And even today, when I work with Dr. Barber's and Frankfurt's Diversity and Equity Committee, is I don't want to forget one moment of what being in the classroom was. I didn't then, I didn't now when I work with that committee, because I remember how resentful I could be when I felt that someone in leadership didn't understand and that they forgot what it was like. And so, honestly, I mean, back then, it feels like so long ago, it was like 2019, early 2020. I just stayed in the classroom as much as I could. I subbed, sub shortages were the case even before COVID. And so, I happily picked up, coverages in the classrooms to where I felt like each student was my student. Like the kids that performed, they were never on my roster, but they were all my students because I was just as actively involved as any other teacher. I mean, as an ECE special ed teacher, you only have a small number of official students, but for me, that was my classroom, the whole school. I felt like ownership in all those kids' education. And so I feel like that's how I overcame that challenge. They were all my kids, they were all my colleagues. In terms of a great moment, so when I won Teacher of the Year, I was in Oldham County, but I had already accepted the position in Jefferson County. And with that, Donnie was doing awesome work with his sabbatical. I asked if I could switch my sabbatical for money, and then I surprised the school with giving the money for a Washington, D.C. trip. So one of my favorite moments as a staff member there it was just the morning meeting. We always had brotherhood time. And Mr. Gunn is like, Robert Gunn Jr., he was like, all right, Ms. Dueñas has something for you all. And I explained what was happening. And the kids were all so confused. And then I had cut every student's name, and we had a bowl, and it was just a raffle. And I just pulled out 28 names, and I was like, you all are going to D.C. And they were like, what? For free? Yeah. And then, it got better because it ended up on the news. It was covered by the Courier Journal and WDRB and everything. So the Metro United Way came in, and the whole community chipped in so that the entire inaugural class could go. So that was my favorite moment. Then COVID happened, so the trip didn't happen. God willing, It will happen March of 2022, so they'll actually be ninth graders and a little bit more mature and can probably appreciate it more. So, but yeah, so that was my best moment there.
So you still have the culmination of that best moment ahead of you.
Yes, so I will still be on that trip, so I'm excited for that.
Wonderful. So Donnie, as a teacher, we've all had our struggles. They're plentiful within the classroom, but it's always worth it once we have those positive moments that take place. We never forget those. So tell us something that caused you pause or that caused you to struggle as an educator, and then tell us a moment that maybe made it all worthwhile.
I'll think big picture here. You know, this past year and a half or two, is it still March of 2020? I don't even know anymore, but has pretty much just sucked. Like, there's really no other way to use it. And, you know, I know Dr. Thompson, you mentioned that word, said, yeah, that pretty much describes the last couple of years as a public teacher, where we've seen, you know, words like equity and equality have suddenly turned into trigger words. Like, I'm ready for school board meetings to be boring again. Like, we need like that type of education to come back. We can focus on solid policy instead of there always being heads butted together. But as far as something to celebrate, despite everything what these past 2 years have been, we still have some amazing educators across the state that have really gone out of their way to really humanize their students, to, you know, despite everything else that's going on, they still understand that their students are people, that their students each have their own individual struggles that they're going through, and those type of teachers are willing to go above and beyond to make sure that they are taken care of.
All right, I'm going to skip around just a little bit, so it might be not quite the same order. I'm going to go back to Samuel for just a moment and say, last January, you were called to Washington, D.C. to protect our Capitol. What challenges did you face, and what positives did you take away from the experience? Who or what helped you get through that time?
I think the challenges was similar to what all the other teachers would say as far as teaching virtually goes. So like getting the contact with everybody, there was certainly not much of a change there for me. I would say too that you know, as far as the challenges that I had, first and foremost, I missed my wife and kids. That was the biggest one. And you know, I was talking a while ago about how, you know, my wife is the backbone of our household, and she had to do all that on top of missing me, or at least I think she missed me. You missed me, right? Okay. And some positives from it was probably the support system I had around me. I had people there on ground with me, my commanding officers, you know, Major Howe, First Lieutenant Ben Cuthbertson. I think I finally said that right. We called him Cuddy B for short. And Captain Whitfield. They were all understanding. They had things they expected of me. I met those expectations to the best of my ability. And whenever I had to kind of, you know, handle things on my civilian career, they understood. They worked with me pretty good. And also, there was a lot of support that came from the school district, you know, from Mr. Maxey and my principal, Ms. Carver. They were supportive. They understood how important my job was there in D.C., and then my commanding officers in D.C. understood how important my job back home was. So it was just a little bit of both, everybody around me. And then if you have that one person in your life there that, you know, it doesn't matter how good you're doing, like, they're always happy. Like, everything that you do and you do good, they just keep getting happy. That would be Captain James Hatch. I mean, that guy. It seems like every time I talk to him and I tell him good news, man, the happier he gets. So if you've got people like that in your life, don't take that for granted, man, because you know, they're the ones that's got your back too. So just a big shout out to him there. He's here, he works here in Frankfurt too, and I invited him, but you know, I think he's a little busy there. So wanted to see him come out here. First thing I'd say to him is I'd compliment his hair. He's bald, by the way. So. But yeah, it's just those people around me, and you know, missing my family at home and them being supportive too. That was all that worked together to help me out and do my job effectively and come home safely and get my soldiers home safely too.
Well, I appreciated Allison sharing your story with us, and I followed you along the way as you were there. I'm going next to Mrs. Szymkowiak, just because I didn't have to say your last name again, but I practiced so long I wanted to try it one more time. Sara, you made the decision a few years ago to step out of the classroom and start a new career as a stay-at-home mom. What was it like making that decision, and how has it been going for your family?
Okay. Just so you all know, my husband is Polish, which is why I have the last name Szymkowiak. And yes, I did go from Sara Thompson to Sara Szymkowiak, so, I just wanted to be different. I was teaching in Jefferson County, and I was teaching for 7 years when I had my first son. And then I had my second son after my 9th year. And with the first son, it was mostly manageable. I could get my stuff done. I couldn't do everything that I used to be able to do, but I did enough. And then by the time I had my second son, it was horrible. It was a game changer. I felt like I was failing in every aspect of the work. So I would go to school, I would rush home immediately when school ends, and take care of my kids, dinner, bath, bed. And as soon as they go to bed, I would stay up, either grading papers, planning lessons, all the lovely things teachers have to do. And I would stay up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, then also wake up with my newborn, and then, wake up in the morning and do it all over again. And I felt like I was failing. I was a failure as a mom, I was a failure as a wife, I was a failure as a teacher. And I should say, not that I was a failure as that, but I felt that way. And so I made the decision to quit my job. And after my 10th year, when I finished my 10th year of teaching, I quit. It has now been 5 years. I have gone on to have 2 more children. And I have found that I can do other things to be beneficial. I think we all go into teaching because we want to make a difference. And when I felt like I wasn't making a difference, I did quit. But however, I still feel like I have things to contribute and things to do that I can make a difference. And so hopefully, even though I'm not teaching, I can still continue to make a difference.
Oh, you most certainly can. Yes. Yes. Donnie, that moment, and I can speak from experience too, when you're named Kentucky Teacher of the Year, is a life-altering moment. It just changes so much in your direction in education, in your opportunities. What ran through your mind when you were named Kentucky Teacher of the Year, and tell us about that moment?
So that morning, right, we were the first virtual ceremony because we were in the middle of the pandemic. Usually they do the awards in the spring, but because of the pandemic, got pushed back till like early October. And I actually got the time wrong, right, what time it was supposed to be. I thought it was going to be like an hour later than it actually was. So when the calendar notification popped up, like I wasn't even barely dressed yet, right? Couldn't find anything, could not find my earbuds.
That was almost a first for being named.
Yeah. So, but if you go back and watch the video, it's kind of funny. It looks like I'm wearing these like really cool like Bose noise canceling headphones. Really, they're my daughter's My Little Pony headphones because I couldn't find mine. There's a reason I didn't turn my head left or right. I didn't want you to see rainbow sparkle up here. No, but it's definitely a cool moment, right? It definitely. I mean, I'm not a crier, and if you want to see like how if you watch the video, it was pretty emotional. And kind of as that day went on, knowing that for the next year, that I would have the chance to be an ambassador for the profession. Not just across, my district and the state, but really across the whole United States, has really been an honor. We just got back from Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago where I was given the chance to kind of advocate for students, ask for things like increased funding, talk about universal pre-K, things that are on the table. And those are opportunities that I would never have the chance to do had it not been for this award. And it's not something that I've tried to take lightly. And even though technically my year of service is coming to an end soon, Willie Edward Taylor Carver Jr., longest name ever, is going to do an amazing job as the 2022 Kentucky Teacher of the Year. Look him up if you haven't yet. He's a pretty big deal. But I'll still always continue to advocate for Kentucky teachers, students, and parents in public education space in Kentucky going forward.
Having that voice and that teacher voice amplified is one of the
Yeah.
greatest.
Plus, we got to go to space camp, too, which is
Exactly.
pretty cool.
And get a flight suit.
I got a
Yeah,
flight suit.
yeah, that's cool. And Jessica had that experience as well. Sam, I'm going to jump right back over to you for just a moment. You touched on this just a little bit earlier, where you taught actually from DC. What was that experience like? You are in the nation's capital, you are working to keep it safe, and yet you are still teaching your students here in Kentucky. You were in a totally different experience. We all were having unique experiences, but yours was most unusual, I do believe. Tell us about both the teaching and the publicity that you received from that. What was it like for you?
Yeah, so teaching online from DC, from my desk or my hotel room, or teaching online from my I guess you would call it an office that I have in the house there. Teaching from any of those places, I don't think there's much of a difference there, because you're limited to how much real exposure that you have with your children, with your students. You have the challenge of making sure you get in contact with all of them. It's all the same for everybody else that was teaching last year too. I do believe, and I believe that everybody in this room, and probably most teachers in Kentucky, would have done the same thing had they been in that same situation. As far as the publicity goes, probably the nicest thing about that was, Lexington Herald Leader was the ones who started that. They featured me on the front of their one of their newspapers, and I took that as a love letter from Kentucky. I really did. I'm sure that most of you all have a brother, sister, spouse, cousin, somebody that they join up in the armed services. They get shipped off somewhere. It might be just basic training, or they might go to the desert somewhere, wherever. You probably know somebody like that. Anytime that you are thinking about them and you let them know that you are thinking about them, it means the world to them, and that's the way I took that there. So the publicity really helped out too, because people I hadn't talked to in a long time, they were reaching out and said, "Hey, I seen you in the newspaper, man. That's proud of you, I'm happy." They would say things like that to me, and it was always just really, really encouraging. Like I talked about earlier, all the encouragement we all needed, and yeah, again, the best way to describe that is that was a very, very one of the truest forms of a love letter I got from the state of Kentucky. Man, that was awesome. So, big shout out to Lexington Herald Leader, and thank them for putting all that together. Better than I deserved.
I love that, a love letter from Kentucky. I love that. We're going to jump back to Jessica for just a moment. I have been seated at the table with her today, and she has reason to celebrate this Thanksgiving, this month of Thanksgiving, for some very personal reasons. Recently, within this past year, you have opened up with your struggles with alcoholism. And would you mind telling us just a little bit about how that battle impacted your career and your personal life? And then I want to share your success of this month. All right?
Yeah, it's so from college onward, my relationship with alcohol was problematic, and then I found myself actually dependent on it over time. And the biggest struggle for me was, how am I this loving, caring, passionate, active teacher, and then I run home, while other people run home to take care of their kids and stuff, I run home to go to the liquor store and drink. And by 2018 to 2019, my alcohol consumption got to a point where I was drinking an entire fifth, and I would drink a whole fifth, black out probably by 7, 8, wake up at 2 a.m. feeling horrible, and then I would grade lesson plan and get myself together for the day. And the fact that I physically could function and do that is also a testament to how wild the human body can be in terms of doing that. But it was a complete secret. My family's not from Kentucky, so they didn't see it. I lived alone, and I arranged my schedule so that no one could ever pick up on the fact that there was something terribly, terribly wrong, because I was so ashamed. And I was used to a family where drugs and alcohol were a problem, and those people were looked at as less than. And so for me, I couldn't imagine, say, my mother being aware and calling me the names that she called them, and likewise in society too, right? And so I got sober in secret, like at the start of the 2019-2020 school year. Like I had the flu, I actually had gone to the Brook and stayed there for a week to detox. And then when I came out, everything was still secretive, and like I was getting like awards and doing like all this stuff, and I was actually sober. But I relapsed when COVID hit because my partner, he passed away suddenly. He was in recovery and he relapsed and it killed him. And at that point I spiraled, and I could no longer like keep the secret. Like there was no juggling, because not only was I grieving, but I was trying to teach. And as you all know, teaching right now is absolutely physically like barely possible. Like people are breaking down left and right. And so dealing with grief, and then obviously like relapsing, dealing with the alcohol dependence coming back, I couldn't keep it together. And it was like I would get a week or two, bam, I'd fall. I mean, I had to use like FMLA, I couldn't like stay in school. And I was hospitalized between the Brook, OLAP, Landmark Recovery. It was 8 times from like April 2020 until November 2020. And I went to stay with my sister in Florida because my principal put me on a plane and flew me out there. He was like, you gotta go be with your family in Dueñas. It's like, okay. And once I got there, I was hospitalized one last time in November of last year. And I still can't exactly pinpoint what changed. I think I got tired of trying to do it all on my own, because that was the theme, right? Like I was a superstar teacher. I could do all this, I could do everything. And look at me, I went to college, first generation college student, like accolades from here to there. But I couldn't keep it together. And once I finally broke down and I got tired of trying to be Superwoman, I finally stopped, and I told myself I needed to choose myself over my career. So I submitted my resignation letter. My sobriety date is November 28, 2020. I resigned from Jefferson County Schools December 4th. December 3rd, I published my story in the Courier Journal, and I was like, hey everyone, this has been going on. But my life has completely changed since then, and I didn't realize how many other teachers struggle in secret. My students came to me to tell me about their family members who were struggling. I didn't realize how much my teaching was shifting from standards to how to overcome challenges. And so and God willing, 7 days, on the 28th, I will be 1 year sober.
Thank you for your brutal honesty and your sharing with us, and congratulations on what a difference a year makes. What a difference. Sara, I guess you can take the woman out of education, but let's get real. You're never really going to take the educator out of the woman. So you are a stay-at-home mom, but you are also the chair of the board for Thompson Scholars, named after your dad. Tell us about that organization and all of the amazing things it's doing for the children of Eastern Kentucky, please.
Okay, so Thompson Scholars is a nonprofit organization that we founded in 2020. Our executive director, Rhonda Phillips, is really the brain behind it. And we were attending protest in Clay County, which Clay County, Kentucky is in Eastern Kentucky and Appalachia region. And we were attending protest, and we were looking at the inequity, not only with people of color, but also just in the Appalachian region. And just trying to figure out what can we do to help them? What can we do in order to make a difference? So Rhonda Phillips contacted my dad and asked if Thompson Scholars could be named after him. And then when I heard about it, I was like, oh, I've got to be a part of this organization. This has to be, what I do. So anyways, we wanted to be more than just a traditional tutoring program, let's say. Yes, these students may sometimes have academic difficulties. We do have 3 rank 1 teachers on our staff. However, we wanted to teach them life skills, things to be successful. So we have really been focusing on the 40 developmental assets framework. So for example, one of the assets that they need to learn is empowerment, which I feel like a lot of you guys have talked about that today. And our students, one of their assignments was to petition the city council to get a fence built around a splash park. So they figured out how to go to the city council. What do you have to do? Who do you have to contact? How do you have to get on the docket? They went and they presented, and hopefully we are writing a grant, but hopefully we have got a fence for their splash park. And they have done this all on their own. They also have been added to the Kentucky Student Voice team and the National Student Voice team. So we have been working with them as well. One of the other things that we've been doing is providing experiences for the kids. So last week they got to come up to Louisville, and most of them had never left Clay County, or if they had been to London, which is, the next biggest city over. And so they got to come up to Louisville, they got a tour of U of L, and then we took them to Outback to eat at a restaurant. And it was the greatest thing because many of them had never been to a restaurant before. And so they thought Outback was amazing. They also got to go to Churchill Downs, and Churchill Downs rented out a whole suite for us, a whole entire floor for us. They got to speak to high-level executives, the general manager, the head of security, the head of food service, and hear of their life stories. So basically in 2 days, we packed it as much as we can. Another experience they're gonna have is they get to go to the Bluegrass Airport, and they just get to figure out how to navigate an airport. Unfortunately, we're not going anywhere at this moment, but when they are ready to go somewhere, they will have these experiences. So our overarching word in the Thompson Scholars is resiliency. And through our program, that we are hoping that our program is resilient, our scholars are resilient, and we hope that we portray that in the world, that we will always be resilient.
So what's next? Next steps for the program?
So next steps, we have our scholars, which are our 8th through, we only have 11th at this moment. And then we have our STEAM team, which is our 3rd and up. And then our next steps is we are expanding into preschool. And so we have a grant so we can hopefully reach them at the younger age as well. And then we are also just working on getting funding so we can do more experiences. We are working on having people come talk to them. I think there's a lot of people in this room that if you'd like to come find me after, we would love you all to come talk to our scholars and come hear their stories. Because I think living in this region, they don't necessarily see people succeed, and a lot of, especially people of color. They love my father, but unfortunately, there is not that many people of color that they see succeeding. Not saying that there isn't any succeeding, but they don't see it. So our goal is to bring these people and to talk to them and show them that, hey, you know what? Your board president just sat here and talked to all these powerful people about you. And just knowing that all these people are behind them are what we really hope to achieve.
Do you see this as your future as well, or do you think you'll ever go back into the classroom?
I don't see myself ever going back into the classroom.
Sounds like you're doing important work, though.
I see myself definitely working with the Thompson Scholars. We would eventually hope to grow it into all parts. I live in Louisville, so we'd love to move to Louisville as well. So we'd love to grow it into the rest of Kentucky.
Love that. Donnie, you've spent most of this past year working with the Kentucky Department of Education. Tell us about the project you developed and how it's going.
Yeah, so when you win Kentucky Teacher of the Year, one of the options you have is the ability to take a sabbatical with the Department of Ed, with their Office of Communications for 6 months. And I was really hesitant about it. I know sometimes teachers do it, I know Jessica didn't, other times, they decide to. And, talking it over with my wife, she realized, one, that I'd be home a lot because of COVID, right? A lot of schools are still closed. The Department of Ed was closed. And two, I think she realized too that I was free babysitting at home for our 2-year-old. So I have, I've decided to take the sabbatical
Not
previous
everybody
year.
gets the Kentucky Teacher of the Year.
Yeah,
It's their baby.
yeah. So I don't know if I'm the best babysitter, but anyway. So when you take this sabbatical, it's kind of up to you what you want to do with it. I decided that I was going to start a video series, right, called Teachers Passing Notes. Check it out on teacherspassingnotes.com. You got to still put the promo in there, right? Yeah. Where the idea was that I would travel across the state and talk to a variety of just award-winning. I love when people take out their phones when you give a website. I'm going to write that one down. Right? The idea was I would travel across the state and conduct these brief little interviews with educators and turn those interviews into 2 to 3 minute clips to kind of put a spotlight on some amazing things that Kentucky teachers are doing, not only in their classrooms, but also outside of the classrooms, to make sure that I guess the quality of education that their students get is really top of the line. So so far I've recorded 15 total videos and interviews, and I've edited those into about 32 different videos. And the nice part is with that, I am so far ahead with the videos that I'll be able to keep releasing them after my sabbatical is over in January. And they're letting me keep the GoPro and sound recording equipment. So, I'd love to get a chance to talk to some of the teachers in your building as well. If you know of any teachers who are just doing cool things that you want to share or spotlight, I'd love to get a chance to come and do a brief little interview with them, because technically I still have a month and a half left where I can come in and talk to them. So.
And they're wonderful. If you have an opportunity,
Yes.
please
They're
go in
delightful.
and see
They're
them.
delightful.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're very well done. Very well done.
I try.
We're going to close our conversation this morning with you, Jessica. If you could tell any other teacher who is struggling with an addiction any piece of advice, what would it be?
It's a tough question, but I know because I thought I was a bad person. You're not. And there is help, and help doesn't look just one way. There's a lot of recovery that looks very different for different people. And it's worth it. It's really, really worth it to get better. And obviously I'm not still teaching, but you become a better teacher when you take care of yourself, whether it's in the classroom or not.
I think that can go even beyond addiction, just in general. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. It's been so wonderful to hear your insights. Would you help me thank you?
It's good. It's bad. Yeah, that's like icing. Oh, one.
So the gift that they received, if they'd like to share it with you, is a picture of students and teachers from across Kentucky making hard hands, because we love education. We love each other. There's lots of variety represented here from lots of different reasons and ways. And this is the gift for them for being here and speaking with us today. So this next part is the real reason this conference, still here? Okay. Was the real reason this conference came to be. 3 years ago, when we decided to start a conference for a cause, it was because a dear friend of mine, a teacher in JCPS, was raising money to be able to afford and purchase a service dog for her daughter. I combined my love of teacher leadership and professional development and fundraising to create a conference for a cause. We have been able to gift over $1,000 to our recipients for the past 2 years. If anyone knows me at all, I would much rather give something than receive. Being able to use Kentucky Teachers in the Know to give back to people who dedicate their lives to the children of Kentucky is an absolute honor. This year we had 14 nominations for the cause. Those 14 nominations were narrowed down to 5 from there a group of about 20 members read the heartbreaking, tear-jerking stories, and believe me, they were, to help us narrow down those to just 1. I took myself out of the judging completely because not just 1 but 3 were very dear friends of mine that had been nominated. All 3 were extremely deserving and in need. As the 20 reviewers sent me their choices, I began to see a common thread. This year's recipient's story, her need, could be the story of any person in this room. It will resonate with all of us as we all deal with similar or exact same situations and issues. It resonates with the fact that teachers often look okay on the outside, but are very much not okay on the inside. It reminds us that while we attempt to put on a brave face and meet the needs of our students every day, we put on personal issues on the back burner. Have we stopped the live feed, Jamie?
Not yet.
Thank you.